All right, we are live, and this week we're doing something a little bit different. We are inviting each of the Democrats who are running for the Senate in the Iowa race against Joni Ernst to come on this week and have a discussion. And our very first one, which going first is always tough, and so I'm very grateful to Theresa Greenfield. So how are you doing today, Theresa?
I am doing great, JD. Thanks for the invite to come out. It is nice to connect. I prefer to crisscross the state and shake people's hands and look them in the eye, but this is great. So thank you for hosting me tonight.
Yeah, it's been weird for us because so much of our campaign has been getting out there to the people, traveling to all 39 counties on a consistent basis, and so we're adjusting like everyone else. I know you are too. Where are you calling it or connecting in from? I don't know what you call it.
I'm staying home like everybody else. Our entire team is staying home to do it. But I am in our back porch, which I have commandeered and turned into sort of my office until it gets too hot. It doesn't have any heat or any cooling, but it has a door that can close to keep my dog from coming in here and causing chaos. And it has good sunlight.
Nice. And then you're in Des Moines then?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
Des Moines.
Okay, no, I think geographically, and so when I first meet somebody, one of the first questions I always ask is where you're from, and it's just that's how my mind thinks, and so
that's good.
So I'm not a big fan of in having gone through a lot of this where people read this long thing on introducing the candidate. You're here. Why don't you introduce yourself and let people in the 4th District and whoever is watching let them know who you are.
Well, thank you, JD. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, so my name is Theresa Greenfield, and I am running for the United States Senate to take on Joni Ernst this fall. And I hope everybody in the 4th District agrees with me. We need a new senator. I am a businesswoman. I'm a mother of 4. I'm a farm kid. And I am fired up to be in this race because it absolutely is a race we can win. I don't know, JD, if you know this, but it's one of the top 5 GOP seats likely to flip in 2020. And so there's a lot of attention, both here in the state and of course around the country, on taking back the majority of the United States Senate. So we're thrilled about that. Another little tidbit, I think it's funny. Senator Joni Ernst is now ranked as the 3rd most unpopular senator in the country, right behind Mitch McConnell and Susan Collins. And while that may not mean so much here, it just tells you, she's not viewed as the most favorable senator. But here in the state, her job approval rating recently dropped 10 points. And to me, that just says Iowans aren't loyal to her. And we have a great opportunity to flip this seat in the fall. So I'm thrilled to be in this fight. I grew up on a little farm in southern Minnesota, right on the Minnesota-Iowa border in the middle of the state, outside of a town of about 500. I had a high school class of 24. And my parents, they raised us 5 kids. They raised row crops, hogs, and my dad was a crop duster. And if you don't know what crop dusting is, go watch my launch video, because I think it is one of the most exciting things in the whole wide world. Watching your dad zoom across the cornfields, go up over, farmsteads, and then zoom back down again. For me, it was pretty inspiring. And so that was great. My parents, particularly my dad, he always said there's no boy jobs and there's no girl jobs. There's just jobs that need to get done. And I have followed that my whole life. And of course, I believe in Washington, there are too many jobs that we need to get done for Iowa and to put Iowa first. When I graduated high school, it was the start of the farm crisis, and interest rates were 21%. And so farm families were in ruin. My parents, they ended up having to sell their crop dusting business. They sold their hogs. They never farmed again. And all 5 of us kids left the rural area. And of course, you know what happened next, right, JD? Schools closed, grocery stores closed, vets retired, meat markets closed. And today, my parents, like so many parents across the Midwest, drive 20, 30 miles, to go to church, to get groceries, and to get healthcare services. So this is personal to me. And of course, right here in Iowa today, net farm income is down 75% since 2013. Bankruptcy rates are at an 8-year high. And no farm family should have to suffer like my farm family did. And every time I get a microphone, I tell Iowans that Senator Joni Ernst is no friend of farmers. You know, she has stood by the trade and tariffs. She has stood by with ethanol waivers that have, you know, gutted that market and really, really damaged our economy. So that's that. I'm also in this fight, though, for hardworking families. I carry their struggle definitely in my heart with me. I was widowed at the age of 24, JD. And my husband was a hardworking guy. He was a journeyman lineman for the power company. So he was a union member. We're an IBEW family. I hope you've got some union people watching tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You guys built the middle class, you know. I'll never forget why my lights come on and who delivers my mail, right? Those are union jobs, good union jobs. But Rod died in a workplace accident when I was 24, and I became a single mom with a 13-month-old and another one on the way. And so, you know, I just wouldn't be here without a hand up. And my hand up was Social Security, workers' comp, union benefits, of course, hometowns, right? People wrap their arms around you and take care of you. And so when Senator Ernst talks about privatizing Social Security and cutting Medicare and Medicaid, this feisty farm girl said, no way. And I got in this race because I want to be a voice for hardworking Iowans. So here I am, and I'm loving it. And we've had enormous success between unions that have endorsed our campaign, so many of them, to leaders around the state.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to do was talk about kind of the 4th district and kind of our needs a little bit. There's 4 things that we're going to be asking everybody. It's agriculture, childcare, education, and healthcare. Those are kind of the heartbeats of this district. In taking our RV and going around talking to folks, this is the most common themes that come up. And so with that, I'll lead in my first question. We'll start off with agriculture that I know you're familiar with here. Yeah. And in one of our town halls last fall, this woman, Michelle, told us about her son. And he graduated recently from Iowa State, and he loves farming, and it's in their family tradition. They're several generations in, and but she just came to tears when she started talking about her son and her son's future. And because they have these get off the farm policies and all this corporate consolidation and things, and she's worried about her son's future. And so I wanted to open up and just ask you about how would you support agriculture?
Yeah, well, as you know, JD, I just told you guys my story. I certainly grew up rural and connected with rural America, have so many family and friends who live in rural America, and I take these tough economic times certainly personal. You know, I went to auctions where families' contents of their entire homes was put on ARACs, and they left our communities. I mean, and we're not there yet, but they definitely need a voice. First and foremost, we have to end trade wars and tariffs that have devastated our agricultural communities markets, whether it's commodities or manufacturing. And then all of that, of course, has filtered down into our main streets. That has to happen. And Senator Joni Ernst has stood by and allowed all of that to happen. Second, we absolutely need to rebuild the RFS. We need to make sure that our ethanol industry is strong. You in the 4th district have seen the losses from ethanol. You've had plants close within your district. And in those small towns, when you lose 30 or 40 jobs, that's a big deal. Those are people you go to church with, right? Those are people that your kids are in your classes with. So we've got to work on that. And then we have to focus and invest on rural opportunity. And I think there's 3 key things that are so important. One, capital for small businesses to grow. They struggle to get it, whether they want to expand, whether they want to be a startup. So finding that capital source, and we can do it. Second, though, they need a workforce, and making sure that we invest in opportunities for everybody to gain those skills to either, 1, get a living wage job, or 2, start their own small business. As I have crisscrossed the state, JD, I talk to folks who say, you know, our plumber is going to retire this winter, and we don't have a plumber within 30 miles. So I know there's opportunities, but starting those small businesses are tough. And then finally, I would say, we have to have an infrastructure package.
Yep.
This is nothing to brag about, but Iowa is 50th in the nation in bridge suitability. How awful. But we've got a lot of maintenance to do, and we've got a lot of resilient infrastructure to build, and we have to get broadband and high-speed internet to every single home. I talked to a young family down in southern Warren County, and the wife is a graphic designer, and she drives, an hour into Des Moines, an hour back every day. And she said, if I had high-speed internet that could handle, those uploads, she could work from home a little more often, and it would be more efficient. So today, during a shutdown like we have because of the coronavirus, she's probably not working. I haven't called to check, but these are tough times. So those kind of investments are where we need to go.
Yeah. With the renewable fuel standard that you mentioned, we're seeing plants go idle and shut down, and the cost of it's not worth the cost of production right now. And one of the things that's absolutely scary for me is I looked up the markets recently, and we still have about 50% at least in the 4th district of our grain from last fall still in the bin.
Yeah,
and so
carry over.
Yeah, it's so scary to see where corn prices are going to be because of all this. So
I think that I haven't checked today's price of corn, but I keep a pretty close eye on it, and I'm not sure that you currently can cover your input costs with May futures. I just don't think you can. So we've got to rebuild the competition, get our markets back, level that playing field, and have competition.
Yep. When you win, and I'll say this for everybody, so I'm not playing favorites. I just got to say that.
Just say it for me.
When you win, I'll talk to you about enforcing our antitrust laws. That's one of my biggest things. And so
let's do that. I look forward to it.
There you go. Moving on to childcare. Emily Koester Bodholt, she shared with us a story about both the opening and the expanding of childcare center in her home county in Buena Vista County. And the list of challenges and the roadblocks on this journey are really extensive. And the rules and regulation, as well as the lack of consistency between agencies, makes it almost impossible to open and maintain a center. And quality childcare will only make our state's economy stronger, I feel. Would you what would you do for childcare, and how will you expand it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can tell you, as a single mom who had a 13-month-old and was expecting number 2, I relied on childcare. Certainly I had grannies that helped out and neighbors and friends, but childcare is so critical. And it is the way that we build our economy. I think about 75% of our families, both parents work outside the home and depend on childcare. And yet well over 25% of our state has, childcare deserts where they just don't have affordable, accessible, available childcare. So this one's near and dear to my heart for sure. Lots of things we can do. One, I got to give a little shout out to the Iowa Women's Foundation for all of their research and their hard work and advancing this conversation. We need to invest in training skills so people want to open a child center, whether it's in-home or start a daycare center. We need to make sure that capital is available. Again, gets back to that capital for small businesses and having the ability to grow and start up. So training and capital, childcare is a great example of that. And we need to continue with our creative solutions. I had the opportunity to visit Holstein and talk to some of those folks about what they've done to, as part of expanding their school infrastructure. They also built a daycare into their facility that is open for the community. At least that's what I understand. And so, coming together to recognize that need. And we have to, on the federal level, I think, incentivize and encourage businesses to include daycare, childcare as part of their on-site facilities. Look, I can't imagine the number. I know there is one. But there's a lot of lost time, showing up late, leaving early, calling in sick, skipping shifts because you have childcare difficulties. And so, I think that it's a workforce issue, it's a family issue.
When we moved to Sioux City here in 1984, I was still in daycare, and my dad's job offered daycare. And to my mom and him who are just starting off their family, it was a huge help. And it just, you see, I can't imagine too many companies now even offer daycare for, help and everything. So
Yeah.
it's something that we hear consistently throughout, especially in rural communities where it's really hard. So,
well, I believe, JD, we are about 350,000 spaces short to meet the demand. I mean, that's how much we need.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Moving on to when kids get a little bit older, education. And so when I was growing up, teachers used to travel from Nebraska. We're in the tri-state area where we have Nebraska and South Dakota just right over the river. On the northern part of the district, we border Minnesota. We used to have teachers come into the state, and now, especially after the past few years with collective bargaining being cut, it is shocking for me to see teachers living in Sioux City, but driving over to South Dakota to teach.
Yeah.
And especially on the northern part of the district, we hear all over Spirit Lake and all the way over to Winnebago County, teachers going up north to Minnesota because they can get $8,000 more. And so what are some of the things that federally you would like to see education, and how do you support education that way?
Yeah, great. Well, I mean, every Iowan has to have the opportunity to get the education and skills they need to follow their dreams. And by the way, I grew up in Lapland too.
So where is that compared
It's
to?
Winnebago County, like Buffalo Center.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Like, yeah,
So,
I don't know if I don't know if the oh, I want to say the wren, but it's the bird in Brake is still open. But if you are in the Brake area, stop and have a little lunch at the bird.
okay. So our family farm is actually just out, not too far from there. So just outside of Lake Mills. And so.
Oh yeah, I know all those areas, Thompson, the whole deal. But anyhow, you're absolutely right. I know teachers on the north side of the border and the south side of the border, and they are taking jobs. So we've got to work to make sure every Iowan has the education and skills that they need to follow their dreams, to grow our economy, start those businesses. I came out of the farm crisis as a scrappy farm girl. I went to Iowa Lakes Community College up in Esterville in your district. And I'll tell you, back then, I mean, I got a job at Pizza Hut, and I made enough money to pay my rent, my books, my tuition, and get a beer on Friday night. And of course, college kids can't do that, not at community college anymore. It's just become unaffordable. So we need to invest in universal pre-K. So make sure every child gets off to that right start. But I really want to focus on community colleges, trades, apprenticeships. My first husband was a journeyman lineman. He learned his skills through IBEW and his apprenticeship program, and he got paid every single day he was on the job, from apprenticeship all the way through his journeyman thing. So you can earn and learn, and we need to talk more about that. We have to have public dollars going to public schools. And I'll tell you, as your next senator here, our next Secretary of Education will have some public school experience. And right, they'll be putting public schools and public teachers first.
That's great. I want to let folks know, if you're watching this and you have a question for Theresa, put them in the comments below. We'll get to them at the end. But we want to make sure people have an option to ask a question or two. Last thing, healthcare. When I drive around, almost every gas station I stop at has a donation box for someone who just got in the hospital, or someone who had an emergency of some sort. We're seeing healthcare being a GoFundMe site pretty much at this state. In the 4th district, we have hospitals and clinics that are consolidating, offering fewer services, meaning folks have to drive further and further for routine and emergency care. What's your plans for healthcare and expanding healthcare?
Yeah, no. So I got in this race last June. I kicked off my Hear It From the Heartland tour. I've done over 100 events around the state, and absolutely healthcare is the #1 topic I hear about. I believe healthcare is a right It is not a privilege. We have to continue to move to make sure that absolutely everybody has the health care they need. And I want all your viewers to remember that Senator Joni Ernst has voted repeatedly to end the Affordable Care Act and take away your protections for pre-existing conditions or the ability to keep your children on your health care, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I believe that we need to expand and enhance the Affordable Care Act. We have so many good tools in our tool chest that can be strengthened. I certainly support a public option that leaves nobody behind. Absolutely everybody would be able to either buy in or qualify for that public option and create some competition in the marketplace. With that, when I travel, costs are what come up. It's premiums, it's deductibles, it's out-of-pocket expenses, and it's those prescription drugs that I hear about all the time. And we have to allow Medicare to negotiate with the prescription drug companies to lower those prices. It's no wonder that Joni Ernst doesn't support that. She's taken about $1.7 million in corporate PAC donations. She's gonna vote in their interest, not in Iowans' interest. And of course, I have taken a pledge not to accept one dime in corporate PAC donations. And then finally, it's our rural hospitals. Again, I talked to you about the folks up in Lapland who are driving 20, 30 minutes or miles to get to a hospital. And if those close, they're gonna drive 60 miles or not get the care they need. Senator Ernst voted to repeal the ACA, which allowed Medicaid expansion in this state, every state that could take it. Medicaid expansion has saved rural hospitals. I've had the chance to tour Boone County Hospital in your district, fantastic independent hospital. And they'll tell you over and over again about the difference Medicaid has made to keeping their lights on. Same thing, recently got a chance to tour the Siouxland Community Center in Sioux City and talk to those folks about how we can help them if I serve them as their next senator. But Medicaid expansion came up again and again and again as a critical part of providing those services to the community. So we have to maintain and expand that Medicaid and of course, create this options where absolutely everybody can get the care they need.
You know who was a huge factor in Sioux City getting the health center here was Senator Harkin, which
yes.
That's the seat that's up for grabs, is his old seat. So, we got our first question from Hope, and Hope says, I'm a solid Democrat and I want values represented in the Senate, or want her values represented in the Senate. But she knows Iowa also has a lot of conservatives, especially in this neck of the woods. Theresa, excuse me, how can you best represent all Iowans when we send you to the Senate?
And this is Hope.
Yep, Hope.
Yeah, Hope. Thank you for logging in tonight and asking a question. I got in this race to represent all Iowans and to represent all of our values because I think that good healthcare is not a Republican or a Democratic value. Infrastructure that works is not a Republican or a Democratic infrastructure. I spent about 14 years of my career working in community planning at that local level, government level, and learned that you don't have to have politics in these things to take care of your community. And so, I go out and really talk about the things we share, which include, deep appreciation for hard work, but also making sure that folks get a hand up when they need it. And so that's why I tell my story about needing and relying on Social Security as a single mom. But I added a little elbow grease to that and was able to get those first and second jobs. Talk about healthcare, education. These are things that all Iowans want. A strong economy, taking care of our planet, taking some climate action. I got the chance to go down and visit in Pacific Junction, not your district, I know, but, and just tour some of that flooding. And I met with a homeowner who will not be able to move back into their home. And, they're ready for action because folks are seeing what that looks like here. So I'm optimistic that Iowans, we share enough values and we're going to make a switch this fall.
So I have a question that's, I like to know people's personality too when I vote for them a little bit. So when the coronavirus has been flattened, or not even flattened, when we're good, we're able to go outside again and enjoy each other and give each other hugs again, what would be one of your first music concerts?
That is funny that you would ask that. I have to tell you a secret.
Okay.
I am not a big music fan.
Hey,
Um,
that's all
but
right.
my husband is a hinterland fella,
Okay.
and I do like music, and I've done some music occasionally.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I like to do yoga in the park, and I miss
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
I like to go to a ball game.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
miss it,
that's me.
and I like to dance. And
Okay. Nice.
not going out dancing on Saturday night either. So there's a lot of things on my list of to-dos. In the meantime, I planted a heck of a kitchen garden yesterday,
Nice.
and I hope to share some of that extra food, with my neighbors throughout the summer.
Awesome. Next question is from Maggie. Maggie is wonderful. She lives here in Sioux City. She's 10 years old. She wants to know, who are your role models in politics?
Well, Maggie, thank you for watching. Thank you for participating. And I hope that you stand up and lead and run for office too. That's what every girl should do, and boy, frankly. So role models for me, I have to tell you, I think it was probably my mother. When I was a young girl, my parents were part of the DFL, the Democratic Farm Labor Union or party, and she took me to county meetings, and she took me to march and parades, and talked to me a lot about my civic responsibility, and gave me the confidence to have a voice and want to be at that table to lead. And so I think for me, it started with my mother and stays with my mother. And of course, I've watched so many women lead. And currently, right now, we have some fantastic leaders, whether it's Stacey Abrams, who's given a voice to voters, whether it's the women who ran for president, Amy Klobuchar, I'm not going to say them all, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, I don't want to leave somebody out. But these are all women who have stood up and said, look, we need a voice at this table, and we're 51% of the population. We've got great ideas and experience, and we want to lead. So I encourage you to grow your confidence and stand up and run for something.
Yeah, great answer. My mother, I wouldn't be here today running for office if it wasn't for my mother. When I was 10 years old, all I wanted to do was play baseball or basketball, and God bless her, she took me out to see Senator Harkin, and she made me who I am today. And so
yeah, I did door knocking for Congressman Tim Penny.
Oh, nice. Nice. All right, another question from Deborah. What are your thoughts on campaign finance reform and Citizens United?
Yeah, that is a great question, Deborah. I am thrilled. And Citizens United has endorsed our campaign. I'm thrilled to have them on board. And if you tuned in earlier, you heard me tell you the story about my dad, who said there's no boy jobs or no girl jobs, just jobs that need to get done. And the very first job we published as an agenda that needs to get done is to end political corruption. And Citizens United and corporate PAC donations. If there are dark PACs, make sure that they are required to disclose who their donors are. Stop that revolving door of being able to serve and then move on out to a cushy K Street job. These things are really tied with how the decisions are being made. So Senator Ernst has taken $1.7 million in corporate PAC donations. She voted for a fossil fuel lobbyist to head the EPA. And of course, it's no wonder that we've had 85 ethanol waivers that have devastated Iowa's economy because of the influence of this kind of money. She's been unable to put Iowa first, but instead puts her corporate donors. Even most recently, she got caught illegally coordinating with a dark money group to benefit her own campaign. It was a group set up by her own top political advisors. I mean, that is just shady and shouldn't happen. So we are going to end political corruption. I know the House has passed a bill, and there are probably well over 250 of them sitting on the desk of Mitch McConnell, waiting for a Democratic Senate to take action on these bipartisan bills, to vote them up or vote them down, but to end the divisiveness and to get work done for the American people.
All right. From Jim, it might be my dad. I don't know. I don't have a last name here. I doubt it. But I hope you would agree that sometimes there is a need for compromise in Washington. Would there be an issue upon which you'd be unwilling to compromise? If there's an issue, you're unwilling to compromise?
Thank you, Jim. No, you're absolutely right. As I travel the state, people want the divisiveness to end. I don't think the expectation is that we're going to get our way on everything, but we do want to have the fight. We want to have the discussion and the debate, which right now, Mitch McConnell, Joni Ernst, they're not having that debate because every bipartisan bill that comes over from the House is just sitting on his desk. And they've really stopped that democratic process. So I want to go and work together. I'll stand up for so many things, but I know we'll also have to make compromises along the way to get things done. So are there things that I say heck no to? Well, I will always defend a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions. That is uncompromising to me. Frankly, everybody needs to be able to make their own healthcare decisions, not just women. I'm not going to sidestep that one. And I suspect, everything else, we're just going to have a good old fight about. But the people want us to have that debate. They want us to go in and bring the ideas from 50 states together and think about the good of their country and the good of their home communities, of course. Thank you, Jim.
Amy asked, can you talk about the importance of soil and water quality and what we can do?
Thank you, Amy. I have had the opportunity to stop by a few farms and have had a couple tours. One in Guthrie County, which I know isn't in the 4th district. And it's really great, not to mention going back to my own family farm. It's really great. There's a lot of conversation going on there and innovation regarding soil health, regenerative farming, a real need to continue to improve the soil. Farmers look at it certainly as if they're taking good care of their environment, but they also see it as their asset. That black dirt is how they grow crops, and that's their small business. And so they recognize that the rains that have been coming, creating more runoff, they want to find ways to improve their soil health. And as you drive your 39 counties, I think you probably are seeing more and more no-till or low-till. I certainly see it as I travel the state. But I do believe on a federal level, we also can move forward and start making investments in maybe some cover crops and other techniques that help our farmers sequester that carbon, improve their soil, and also retain the value of their asset.
Yeah, one thing I really enjoyed with the caucus was the amount of attention, and I get when they come out to Western Iowa, they talk more about agriculture probably than when they are in Des Moines. But one of the things folks started talking about was paying our farmers for their environmental services, and it was a thing that I think a lot of folks here in Iowa have been hoping for a long time, and it really caught fire amongst these Democratic candidates. And I thought it was a big step forward on a national level of that discussion. And so.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is a discussion Senator Harkin started a while ago, maybe had some different terms for it, but thinking about investing in their environmental services and their operations as something that benefits all of us.
Yeah. And one last question on the campaign trail. Do you have a favorite Iowa moment? I always there's always something that's so Iowa that I love to just share it. And so if folks are watching from out of state maybe or something, all the talks I have with journalists and stuff like that during the caucus, they always love to hear that Iowa moment. And so I don't know if you have one, but
well, I grew up outside of a town of 500. So one of the things we've been doing in our campaign is taking the back roads. And I have a volunteer that has put together a fact sheet, shall I call it, for every single county. And on the backside, it includes the cafes in these towns of 500 to 1,000. And we've been stopping by. To me, those are all Iowa moments because it feels like going home. And the other thing, sometimes when I get asked by journalists too, they'll say, tell me one thing about Iowa. And here's what I know. If you have been to one small town, you've only been to one small town. Because absolutely every little small town and big one has their own thing, whether it's, the strawberries, whether it's the best chili. I was down in Salem, it's a little town of like 380, a great little restaurant, but they actually have a historic home from the Underground Railroad times. Wow. as you travel, and you see this in your 39 counties, every town has something that's really special about it. And you just got to slow down, grab a cup of chili at the local cafe, listen a little bit, and enjoy the one thing about their one small town.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's a couple, since last election, I've gotten connected with several rural Democrats, and we don't really have a name for ourselves, but we ended up starting by default calling ourselves Dirt Road Democrats.
There you go.
I like it. Well,
yeah, that's right.
I appreciate your time. Before we go off, I want to let folks know, where can they find more information about you and all your social media and everything, so they can follow you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, JD, thanks for having me out here tonight. I don't mind being your guinea pig. Thanks a lot. But I'll tell you what, we are gearing up to win this primary election, and I appreciate the opportunity to be out here tonight and hopefully help you understand why I'm the strongest candidate to defeat Senator Joni Ernst. But I can't win alone, so I do need your help, and would love it if you could go out to greenfieldforiowa.com, sign up to volunteer. Our phone banks are already up and running. We've been doing volunteer training virtually. We always can use more folks to help us with those phone banks. Emma will get back to you shortly and help you understand what your skills are and how you can help out. We got something for everybody. Please amplify our messages on your social media too, and just get that word out that we're here. We're running to do a job to represent and put Iowa first. And of course, I'd love to earn everybody's vote tonight.
June 2nd.
Yep.
Okay. And is there, we're dealing with campaigning in the time of the coronavirus.
Yes.
Absentee ballots or request forms are going to be sent out. Do we have a date on that yet?
I haven't heard a date yet, JD.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
we'll let you know if we
Go
hear.
to every registered voter. That's right.
That's
Okay.
right. That's
Okay.
right. And so I'm glad that the Secretary of State has taken that step. You know, I would encourage our state leaders to take the next step and actually send a ballot to every registered voter. But certainly I'm glad that everybody's going to get a chance to request an absentee ballot.
All right. Well, Theresa, thank you again so much. Best of luck in the primary, and thank you for taking time today.
Yeah, anytime. Great to see you all. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
I'll see you on the trail, maybe.